Hey, hello. We're here together, myself, Lara Gregory. I'm a coach who works with adults, both individuals and couples in the area of relationships and intimacy. And today I'm here having a conversation with Wendy Sheirich. And she has been very generous with her willingness to share her, I guess, a bit of a story or her experience as a woman in today's world, and share a little bit about how her relationship to her body, to her sexuality, and how she does relationship is, and maybe how it's changed over her lifetime. That's sort of the general broad sweep topic of today. And Wendy's just going to tell and share however she wants to. So thanks so much for coming.
Thank you for the
Yeah.
introduction and also for the invitation to speak and to tell my little bits and pieces of my story. I'm 68 years old next week, so I do have a lot of content to cover, but
A lot of stories.
I'll try to pick and choose.
Sure.
Okay, so let's see, where do I want to start?
That was going to say, where do you want to start? What works for you?
Well, if the topic of the conversation today is around relationship with my body and about my experiences with sexuality and relationships throughout my life, I will start from the beginning, and that is that I was raised in the Canadian prairies with a very traditional family. I was the oldest of 5 children, a very, very dominant father who basically gave me the message that I did not have a voice or an opinion that counted. And so I really kept silent for a good half of my life, I would say. And I think that really helped to sort of form my interest over the years in feminism and women's rights. And in terms of sexuality, I had some experiences as a young child with childhood sexual abuse by my grandfather, also by my family doctor. And then I went on a bit of a rampage in my 20s and decided that I was going to become sexually liberated. And I was going to be just like a man because they seemed to be having a gay old time, a lot of fun with having a lot of sex. So I decided.
Is that how you thought about it back then, or is that kind of when you reflect on it now?
Oh no, I thought about it back then. I thought
okay.
I was in my 20s and I was just coming out of a marriage. I was engaged when I was 14 years old to my high school boyfriend, got married when I was 19. And I left him when I was 23. That is when I decided I was going to go on a sexual liberation quest. And I was going to travel around the world and I was going to sample a man from every country. And
okay, you had a plan.
Got it. I had big plans.
Yeah.
And I did that. But okay. I didn't really say that, I can't really say that I found it as satisfying as what the men appeared to be saying was satisfying to them. I didn't find it that way. I found it to be kind of an empty experience. Okay. I even went as far as trying to work as a sex worker. I thought this is going to be part of my sexual liberation. I had heard a sex worker being interviewed on a radio program before I left on my world adventure. And this woman made the sex industry sound very appealing. Up to that point, I had worked as a registered nurse. And I didn't feel that happy and satisfied being a nurse. I felt very much like a handmaiden to the male doctors. Mm-hmm. And I thought the sex industry was going to be offering me much more opportunities in many ways. So I thought I'd give it a whirl. I started Valentine's Day, 1979.
Okay.
And
yeah. That seems like it would be an auspicious date to start sex work.
Yes, I thought so too, Valentine's Day. And my uniform was a little pair of pink panties. Mm-hmm. And I went to it. There was no training. I just went into a massage parlor that looked nice and applied for a job. And they said I could start that very evening. So I did.
You're in need.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I thought this was going to be like such a wonderful experience. I was going to be helping all these poor men, and I was going to be doing such a good service, and I had such lofty goals and ideals, and I thought it was going to be fun.
It sounds like you're seeking liberation and empowerment in your voice. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it just didn't turn out that way at all. It was like so gross.
Okay.
It was like so vile. Like the experiences that I had with these men was just not very positive experiences. It was like very degrading and disrespectful, and I just felt like I was not showing any kind of regard for even being a person. So many of them treated me like I was suspicious, like I was out to steal from them whenever I could get an opportunity to do so. Of course, my intentions were not that at all. I was going in there with an attitude of trying to be helpful and have fun and provide a good
And be
service.
of service. Yeah. I can hear that when you talk about your initial idea around it. You wanted to be of service.
Anyway, it just did not work out. It was so disappointing. And every night I go home and I try to sort of reimagine and get my mind around how can I readjust my thinking so that I could go back in and try again. And I did that every day for a month. And every day was just no better than the day before. And I thought, oh my goodness, it's much better to be a nurse. I'd much rather be a handmaiden to male doctors than to put up with this crap.
Right.
And so I marched out.
Okay.
Actually, there was 2 men that came in my last gig, 3:00 in the morning, closing time. The manager said, we're closed. I said, I'll take them, and I'll take them both. And he said, okay. So I got them into the room. I hopped up on the massage table because I was young and spry at the time, and I lectured them for 10 minutes solid about how awful all these men that come into this place were just so awful, so disrespectful. You should be so ashamed of yourself, the way you treat women. And I just blasted them. They were like in shock. They were like, their mouth was dropped open, and then I just jumped off the massage table and ran out the door, and that was it. And I decided at that point that whenever the opportunity arose, I was going to try and to help people involved in the sex trade, because it was a terrible, awful place. And so that's what I did. I looked for that opportunity, and I found it a few years later as a nurse. I went to work for a community health clinic in Winnipeg, who was providing health services to those involved in the sex industry, particularly street sex trade. It was an HIV prevention program. And so I sort of made the transition from nursing into social services. And I worked in that social service sector for 30 years.
Got it. And this initial role was nurse providing health care for people who were involved in the sex work.
Well, it was one of the reasons why I was hired. I was never hired as a nurse, but it was because of my nursing background. But also, it really was the clincher was I had a 1 month experience working in the sex industry.
Yeah. They knew what it was like, or at least yeah.
Yeah, that was really what got me the job. And I was so grateful for that 1 month experience and working in a massage parlor, because it really launched my whole career working in the anti-exploitation movement, which for the most part I really enjoyed. Those 30 years, I really felt it was a very rewarding and satisfying job. But I think what happened over the course of the 30 years, well, I got remarried when I turned 30. This time I married a really nice man and a very stable man. And actually next week it's my 38th wedding anniversary. So we've been married 38 years.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Anyway, so especially in the last 16 years of my work, I think I was very much affected by vicarious sexual trauma, because I was listening day in and day out to the women, primarily women, although there was other genders as well who were involved in the sex industry in my social service work. But they all of them told me horror stories about their involvement in the sex trade. And their stories very much resembled my story from my 1 month involvement in the sex trade. So I think there was sort of an accumulative effect. And I ended up sort of sexually just shutting down. I wasn't interested. And as a result,
that was more around that time frame, the last 16 years of your career.
the last 16 years. Yeah, I really got really heavy duty into working in the social services field, and I was in a leadership position. I worked for government. I was getting reports day in and day out, all of these reports coming from all around the province, describing to me in detail all of these sexual exploitation incidents that were reported by children, by vulnerable young adults. And I think it was very frustrating for me that this was happening and that the systems were not responding to these situations. In my mind, the perpetrators were just going around helping themselves to children, and there was no consequences. And I think that was the more traumatizing part of the experience, was the lack of response to the perpetrator.
It sounds like you're seeing a systemic failure, experiencing that as well as the actual
systemic
failures
were, to me, more infuriating than the actual stories, although I think the actual trauma stories had its effect too. I just was not interested in, I lost interest in sex. At the same time, my husband was going into kidney failure, and he was losing his interest as well because he just wasn't feeling well. So we were kind of in sync that way. But this whole time, I just always thought that this was odd. Like, why is there just so much trauma and dysfunction around sexuality that is just like totally surrounding me? There has to be something different. There has to be something positive and affirmative around sexuality and around erotic energy. And so now the internet is starting to come into play, and I'm starting to conduct searches, internet searches, erotic energy, sexual.
You're looking for that other experience that you're sure exists.
Yeah. Yes, I'm sure. I'm just thinking, it's just like so intuitive that it's got to be there. Like, why am I just sort of mired in this trauma pit, coming at me from all directions? Like, why is this, and where is the path out of this? And so I just kept looking. Finally, in 2013, I retired from my job. So now I'm starting to get a little bit of separation from all of this barrage of trauma, sexual trauma coming my way. Yeah. But I'm still searching for this light.
On the internet, mostly?
On the internet. Yeah. Or wherever. I mean, I would ask people that I thought may know. I was looking everywhere.
Awesome. Yeah.
And then also, so I was in Vancouver once, just after I retired, and I was on an internet search, and I found this website that looked really interesting, and it looked exactly what I was looking for. It talked about providing a sexual service around learning how to enjoy pleasure and reclaiming sexuality and whatever. And it was a man that was offering this service. Of course, that made me highly suspicious because it was a man.
Okay.
And I
like,
thought,
as in, what's his real motivation? Suspicious, or what was?
Yeah, like
where did your mind go?
Yeah, like it just went. I don't know. I was intrigued but suspicious, all at the same time. So. Okay. I decided I'm just going to just keep an eye on this website because I knew that I was going back to Vancouver pretty much every winter. And I'll just see whether this person is a fly-by-night or whether this person is actually a stable provider of a
Got it.
good service. So I signed up for the newsletter, and I thought, well,
Fair
okay.
lens to look through, actually, when you're looking for someone in that field. I hadn't thought about that, but yes, yeah. Are they consistently out there doing their profession? Yeah, nice.
Right. And, you know, and how are they continuing to describe their service? And of course, this person had a blog. So, you know, what kind of posts are being made around blogging? And also there was some posts from customers or clients. So I was following that. And I actually, I think in about year 2, I've contacted this person. And he did contact me back because I was, you know, starting to think about maybe going to have a visit with him. But as soon as he contacted me, I just froze. My body froze. And I thought, oh no, I'm not ready for this. So I just continued to stalk his website for 5 years. For 5 years.
It was 5 years, hey? Yeah.
So,
do you mind if I ask, did you explore other people, or did you find any other resources that caught your curiosity too, or was it kind of focused
no, I just kept searching. I couldn't find anything else.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess I started to find some websites around Tantra. And not only was I going to Vancouver every year, I was also going to Puerto Vallarta. And I was conducting internet searches there too. And I found a website that appealed to me, and it was about tantric massage, but it was nothing about sexuality. It was all about the different chakras and whatever. But it was like a 3-hour massage. And it did include the root chakra, or the chakras around that affect the genital area, so that I knew that there was some inclusion, at least, of erotic energy, if not erotic touch. There was no erotic touch involved, but erotic energy was part of it.
It sounds like you're honoring the erotic energy, and yeah, got it, was there.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Because up to that point, I wasn't even going for massages. Like, I didn't even want to be touched. So when that winter in Puerto Vallarta, I started booking weekly massages just with regular massage therapists to kind of get myself used to being touched. And then I booked this 3-hour tantric massage. And it was really good. And really, I felt so good. And it really is what gave me the bravery to then go to Vancouver and actually book with this fellow who I've been stalking for 5 years. Now, at the same time that I was starting to get more brave about this, my husband was starting to feel better. He had a successful kidney transplant. Mm-hmm. And so he was starting to feel a little bit more energetic. And I thought, well, maybe the time is right now to think about maybe trying to revive our sex life after 16-year absence of no sex. And it's not that we didn't have a lot of love and touch in our relationship. We did. Our relationship continued to be very loving, and we still provided each other with lots of loving touch in the form of hugs, cuddling together at night, and good morning kisses, good evening kisses, but nothing.
Just not the erotic connection wasn't happening.
No. Got it. And no interest. But anyway, so finally I went to Vancouver, and I had just come back from Puerto Vallarta from this 3-hour tantric massage, and I thought, okay, well, the time is right. So yeah, he was still operational. He wasn't a fly-by-night. 5 years, he was still going.
Stable. Yeah.
So I made a booking. I asked for 2 hours. And then he asked me, so what is it? What are my issues, or what do I want to work on? So I gave him a list that was about like 2 pages long.
Yeah.
Of all the things, my whole history and what I wanted to work on. And then I messaged him back and I said, well, given the big long length of my list, maybe I should make it 3 hours. So I did. I went for 3 hours. But I guess what had happened in one way is that part of my 2-hour description of my history was I did mention to him as well that I've been working in the anti-exploitation movement for 30 years. Mm-hmm. So when I went to see him, I was very, very impressed. Right away, I felt very much at ease and comfortable with him. And he just seemed to be like a real therapist, like very clinical in his approach with, getting me, first of all, into mindfulness and presence kind of exercises. And then some of the other somatic exercises around feeling into your yes and no, around closeness and distance to each other and so forth. And then he introduced me to the choice and voice exercise of doing a body scan and trying to think about where it is I would like to be touched, and then making that specific request. Well, we had gone like almost the whole 3 hours, and there had been no kind of eroticism or anything sexual that happened. And I thought, I've been waiting five years now, and 16 years. I said,
I'm here, it's time.
I'm not leaving this office, the studio,
without
something substantial, right?
Yeah.
So
good.
then
I like you were clear for yourself. That's awesome, right?
So I got bold and I asked him for a touch in the sexual area, which he provided, but I was still fully clothed. But I could not believe my reaction to that. I was just like astounded how much I enjoyed it, and how much he really, what I say he did is relit my pilot light.
Yes.
After having it blown out or gone out for 16 years. He just sort of touched me. He just ignited my pilot light. It was like magic. It was very magical.
And it feels like you were very ready to be lit also, right? You were like, I'm ready, bring this, help me please, bring this on. Yeah.
Yes. Well, so now my 3 hours are up. So I thought, oh, well, I gotta come back for some more of this. So I booked another 3-hour appointment 2 weeks from that day. Mm-hmm. And before I was ready to walk out the door, he shocked me because he told me, well, he asked me to be nice and quiet walking out the door. I said, why? And he says, because I'm running a brothel here. And I don't want to spread the word too far about it being a brothel.
All the neighbors, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And then he says, I said, what do you call yourself? And he says, I'm a holy whore.
Yes. Yes.
Well, he could have knocked me right over.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I just spent 30 years fighting the sex industry, tooth and nail. And he tells me this as I'm walking out the door. So I left, walking down the street of Vancouver on our way back to my condo, thinking, now what the hell? What am I going to do? I just spent 30 years fighting the sex industry, and the part of the sex industry I was fighting the most are all of the customers, the Johns, that are purchasing sex. And now I'm one myself.
Right.
Like, how did this happen to me? And I was just, my breath was taken away. I was just like, I was in shock. I was actually disorientated. I didn't know where I was going, or I was just like wandering. And I thought, oh my God, what am I going to tell my husband? And what am I going to tell all my colleagues, my hundreds of colleagues back home in Manitoba, that I went to see a sex worker, that I'm a sex worker client?
So had you
What am
gone
I going
into
to
the
do?
appointment kind of with the mindset that this was a therapeutic service, and then when he said that, you kind of went, I just purchased services from a sex worker. Is that
Yeah,
kind of what? Got it.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
God. I just thought, okay, I could just keep quiet. I could just shut up. I could just not go back. I could just never tell another soul that I ever entered that room and entered that studio. And then I thought, that's not me. I can't keep quiet. Like secrets are not a good, I knew enough that secrets are not healthy. And not only that, I loved it. I loved the session. So I thought, oh my God. So in the end, after my sort of wandering down, up and down the streets of Vancouver, lost, like disorientated, in the end, with all of this back and forth thinking, I thought, oh my God, just relax, have faith.
Mm-hmm.
This happened for a reason. Just go with it and just go home, talk to my husband, tell him what happened. So that's what I did. I invited him out for supper that night. After I got home, we went for dinner. I had told him I was going for a massage that day. And I said to him, I wanted to tell you a little bit about my massage today. And I said, this is a person that that specializes in healthy sexuality. And I said, I was just wondering whether it might be worth our while or if it's possible for us to revive our sex life. And so I went to see this person to see what kind of recommendations he would make. And then I said to him, but I guess the first thing I need to know from you is, are you interested in reviving our sex life?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, yes, right away. And I said, well, then I'm going to go back. And he said, okay.
Yeah.
So that very night when we went home from dinner, I started to do exactly the same exercises with him that the practitioner did with me that day.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And
Good for them. Yeah.
our sex life was revived the same day. So it was,
Wow. Yeah. I didn't realize that's kind of how that went for you
yeah,
two.
magic,
Yeah.
magic. So then I went for 4 sessions altogether. And one of the things that he wanted to teach me was that those who are involved in doing sex work were not all victims and not all sexually exploited.
Mm-hmm.
That there were some that were doing this work by choice and that were feeling empowered by doing this work.
Mm-hmm.
So he asked me if I wanted to meet some others, sex workers. And I said, yes, I would love that. So he lined up a group of sex workers and booked a community hall meeting room. And I was able to meet, there was 8 of us in a circle. We did a sharing circle. And I was able to hear the stories of these sex workers. And I told them mine as well. So it was like a major revelation and a major eye-opening experience for me to have that experience along with having the one-on-one sessions.
Very
So
powerful. Sounds like.
yes. So
I
then
imagine for them as well. I mean, obviously we don't know what was going on in their experience, but I would imagine for them it was probably quite powerful too, to share their empowered experience, right, with this work. Yeah.
well, it was a special a special kind of meeting. You know, it was a real sharing
Mhm.
of very intimate and lots of emotion, and you know, I think it went really well. You know, it was a wonderful experience all around, I think. And oh, my internet connection is unstable, it says. Hopefully it holds
Just
out.
because it hasn't shifted over here, so I think we're okay. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I live in the country here, right? I'm out in the country.
Yeah.
So it's it would be mine. It would be mine that would be unstable, not yours. But anyway, okay. So then what happened from there? Well, so now I'm feeling
Yeah.
pretty
Say maybe where are you
encouraged.
at now, currently? Yeah.
Yeah, and so I want to know from him. Well, where did he get this training? How did he know what to do? So he told me that he had taken, well, I guess he had actually taken training as a sexological body worker,
Right.
because
Okay.
it was before the time of somatic sex education training.
Yes.
But he was familiar with, he had done some of the training, some of the more recent training with somatic sex education with the Institute as well. So he told
And
me about it.
sexological body work has been around for decades,
Yes.
not necessarily locally, but yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. So he went to San Francisco
Yes.
and to do his training. But as soon as he told me about the Institute and particularly about CAFN, I looked it up on the internet and I found the
Goodness for
school
the internet.
and I signed up. I thought,
Okay. Yeah.
I need to know how this happened. Like, I need to know the inner workings. I knew that as a client, I could keep going as a client forever, and I would still never really, first of all, I would never be on the inside of the inner workings as a client. I'm always going to be on the outside, looking in. And I didn't want that. I wanted to be on the inside. I want to know how this happened, because, you know, this is like a yearning that really I've had since my attempts to work in the sex industry when I was 20 years old. This is what I was looking for. This was this experience. And so I want to find out now how this can be, and what do I need to know? And I just thought, oh my goodness, this is like a whole new world. So I signed up. And so that's what I've been doing. It's been a year and a half since I walked into the offices of the somatic sex educator / holy whore. And I've been taking courses and attending more sessions as well as a client from time to time as well. And I'm like totally immersed in this work. And I'm just like still totally fascinated. I still think it's very magical. And now I'm learning more of the practical skills of the magic. How to create.
Skills that create the magic.
Create.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I came back to Manitoba after my experiences with somatic sex education as a client, and went and met one-on-one with many of my former colleagues and told them my story and surprised them, because I was of anybody in the whole province, I was the most dogged person going after those sex trade consumers. I was determined to get them and get them good. And I needed to go back and tell them I have new information. And I am now a sex work consumer myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's actually been very positive experience, very helpful and very helpful.
There's a part of this world that we all haven't seen. Maybe kind of what you're saying to them. Did you know this exists? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lovely.
Yeah. So that's my story. How did I do time-wise?
Wonderful. We can kind of pause it there. I'll just say thank you. If you have anything else you want to share to kind of close things up or say goodbye, that would be wonderful. But thank you so much for being willing to share. And I know, at least I trust that we're going to share this out into the internet world, and that people who need to see it will see it. So thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much for the invitation. I appreciate it.
Well, you know, it was an easy ask, because I've done a round of these with men. That was an intentional focus in the spring, like from January through to, I don't know, somewhere late spring. And my mind was going to be like, you know, let's do some focus on women in the fall. And I was rethinking who, and your name came out right away in my brain. So easy ask. So thank you so much for saying yes. All right, I'm going to kind of close our recording here.